we're going to go through the roadmap, SUSE AI. We're going to talk about a little about what it is and the things that we're going to change this year and go through it by quarters, current, next, after kind of a format. I'm Ron Noonan, PM on the AI team.
And I'm Alex Festa, PM for SUSE AI, working with Ron and along with the PSS group.
Yep. Look at that. Okay, so we're going to go through the current work, what's coming next, and before the end of the year. We're going to go basically Q2, Q3, Q4 with different names because they don't want to put Q2, Q3, and Q4 up there. But AI Observability, we'll do a deeper dive look at what that means in the roadmap, and then security also, and what we're going to be doing in those two areas. Starting off, I'm just going to say this is the roadmap, and we'll dive into each of these sections. Again, just translate. Calendar Q2, by the end of June, we'll have these items up here in current. These are designed to come out by the end of Q2. But the way we release and what we're going to do and how we release the product, we call it kind of a rolling release methodology that we're using. Whenever something is done, we're going to put it out. So, I mean, basically everything on this list should be done by the end of the Q2. But for instance, MLFlow right there is out right now because we already got it done. PyTorch? Yeah, PyTorch, it's up there now too, right? It just showed up.
PyTorch has just been released today.
Yeah, it showed up today. So I mean, everything, as we get things done, we're going to put them up there. And so that's the format, and that'll be true all the way through, and we're going to continue that process. So, and even when we do updates, we'll just, as they're done, we'll put them up there. If you have the product, if you have SUSE AI and you have the entitlement, once you have the entitlement, you have access to these things. And if you bought it, say, last month, and throughout the year, or you bought a year's contract or whatever, anything that shows up, you can grab anytime. So it's designed to be used anytime, and the components will be up on application collection. We'll probably get into that a little bit. So that's kind of the format. All of these things will happen. I'm going to dive into the first section. Do you want to talk about this?
Sure. So the way we basically present the AI components, it's through the SUSE AI library. And SUSE AI library, think about SUSE library like a set of building blocks that you can pick up with. They are mostly categorized, so you can find things like inference engines or vector databases, or you can find more traditional kind of application like MLFlow, or you can have, for example, what we call AI components, more generally speaking, like, for example, Open Web UI, because it's not really a category, it's more like something that you can use as a UI. And like Ron was saying, those are basically updated on a regular basis. Maybe later we have a small demo. We show you the details of one of these in the console observability. Yeah. What I mean is, those are typically related to the upstream project, but with the difference that we take the upstream project, we put the upstream project into a Slick container. So we basically look into this from a security perspective. We give you attestation of this security capability, so you know that that upstream project is without the CVEs that we can find. Yeah. And basically, it's off you go. And speaking about rolling release, and I'm basically stopping here, we just updated the Open Web UI to the latest version 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, and PyTorch showed up. This is a screenshot.
PyTorch has just been released. Exactly. We took this screenshot, I think, like
last
2
week.
Days ago.
Yeah, so it didn't have the stuff that just showed up this week. Yeah. Anyhow, when you click on it, you can go in, you can find the stuff that you want. Pretty straightforward. I think we will have enough time, so we will just actually go into this at the end. We don't need to just live on screenshots, but we had the screenshots to make it fun, I guess. No, the first thing we'll talk about, mostly because it's in alphabetical order, well, not really, but AMD Operator and the optimized version of AMD Llama are products we're working on, or components we're working on that we'll be putting out. And those are designed to come out by the end of Q2. They probably will be closer to the June timeframe, but we're expanding our support beyond NVIDIA. NVIDIA is still the lion's share of the market. NVIDIA is still active with everything we do works with NVIDIA, but we're adding additional GPUs, and we'll continue to do that as we're getting requests. don't know. So it's a version of Olama. It's installable with Helm charts.
Yeah.
It'll be tailored for, it's just basically optimized for that chipset.
The idea behind it is basically that if it's true that we do recognize that majority of customers in the market will look at NVIDIA as a reference, it's also true that there's another side of a market that for any other given reason, it prefer to use other kind of accelerators. And AMD is one of those.
Yeah.
So we're starting to get
Popular.
support from that. And Olama is a beautiful example. We have an Olama that is already optimized for the NVIDIA GPUs. We are releasing the same component the flavor optimizer for AMD as well. So customers easily can.
You'll see multiple versions of Olama on our application
And
collection that we talked
just
about.
one small thing that is important
Yeah.
is named here. So when we release a component, not necessarily the component is completely, let's call it cloud native compliant. Like, for example, you can like an M chart to help you actually to be installed on a Kubernetes cluster. In those cases, we write the M chart for you. So MLFlow is another example. If you look at the official MLFlow project, you can find a container. There are some samples of an M chart, but there's not an official M chart. We will basically curate the M chart for you that is compliant with the more advanced standard from a template perspective. And this way you can actually install MLFlow on a cluster as well.
This is pretty simple. Everyone in the world uses PyTorch. We're providing a curated version of PyTorch up in application collection. And I can actually honestly say a year ago, I didn't think this would be something that we would produce because everyone already uses it. But we've been asked by numerous people, if you can clean it up and give us a CVE-free version of it, we'll take it. And so we put it up there. And as of today, it's actually live. And so it's up there.
Yeah,
we'll maintain it. We'll update it every quarter and keep it current. And it'll always be CVE-free, and you'll have a version of it. Yeah. We'll show it later, but it is literally PyTorch.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Like you said. The concept behind the components is exactly that. We basically do an exercise on a regular basis. One is listen customers and partners, understanding what is the request. Second is observe the market, understanding where the market is going, what are the trends that we could potentially be interested in. And the fourth one is actually how those components fit into the open source world, basically. It's really about understanding which of those components can apply to the open source rules and regulations and values that we apply as well. Yeah. And those three things basically give us the direction of what will be there, why will be there. The underlying message that we will increase the speed. As you can see, we start to add more and more components at a regular basis, on a monthly basis, to give you the choice actually of those components when you deploy the architecture.
Yeah, Ted, go. I'll put it back.
PyTorch generally is used for training, right?
All kinds of stuff like that, yeah.
Yep.
People use it to build
Not
stuff.
necessarily inferencing.
Yeah.
And SUSE AI today
It's mostly inference. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, it's a platform you can use for lots of things, and we've been asked to have that because they're using it. I mean, what we found immediately is that when people put a platform in, they don't want to buy a separate platform because one's inferencing, one's training. They want one platform. They want to do all of it.
But to your point,
Yeah.
You're right. Let's say the current focus, if you want to call it like that, is more on the inference than on fine-tuning or training. Nonetheless, we are actually working already on components that allow you to train or fine-tuning. Now, to that regard, for example, I think it will be next slide, we take the direction to start to getting closer to the MLOps world. MLFlow is one of those. There will be another item that we'll see in a minute that is close to MLOps. Into the fine-tuning, we will start to add components later, probably later this year. Right now, we keep getting the focus on inference for a simple reason that, like I always say, looking at the market, looking at the customer and partner demands, they are mostly interested into the inference because it's where they run in production. Yeah. While fine-tuning seems to be like slightly a step before. And it's not that we are not interested, it's simply that we will come in that later.
The reality is, we were in there talking about the inference stuff. They asked for PyTorch too. Yeah. We said, okay.
But yeah, technically speaking anyways, yeah, you can potentially use PyTorch to train a model. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. For example, we embed what's called Torch exec to infer through PyTorch directly. You can use PyTorch directly for more traditional training. So technically speaking, yes, it's doable, but it's not This is the primary focus from our perspective.
Yeah. Okay, Open Web UI pipelines. Open Web UI is one of the application tools that we provide. It's up there today. Pipelines is an additional set of capabilities that you can plug into that infrastructure. And it's actually really useful for, chaining things and doing things in a more, well, I guess you talk to it. You wrote a paper on it that basically covers it, so.
Yeah, pipeline were something that we did not decide to introduce immediately when we released Open Web UI, but then we recognized that actually could be a really useful tool into the context, because on one side, you can use a pipeline to create what most people call an agentic workflows. I slightly disagree with that, because the agentic workflow are part of a pipeline, not necessarily a pipeline, but anyway, they're really useful, especially because, for example, in the latest version, the one that we just released of Open Web UI, you can leverage groups administration along with pipelines and get a more granular control on the flow of your LLM's scenario. So that's a really nice addition. They're not yet available right now on the application collection. They will probably release in the coming days.
Yeah,
really
again, everything on this list except for this, which is my mistake because it changed.
Yeah, sorry,
We'll get there.
Qflow is the next one.
Well, AI observability. So this is happening right now. We're building these. We have some prototype kind of views of them right now. But what we're going to be putting up there is these are extensions to the standard SUSE observability platform that comes with the cloud native stack. And so when you acquire SUSE AI, you're going to get additional pieces available to you that basically brings you three things, but two of them you'll find on the application collection. One of them is you're going to have custom dashboards that let you look at and visualize token usage, prompt usage, what prompts are associated with what responses, GPU monitoring, and vector database calls and performance. And those dashboards are going to be built and put up on the application collection. They'll probably be up there, if I were guessing right now, they're going to be up there in May or April. And in addition to that, we'll be putting up some components that are really upstream components, the auto instrumentation components that are language specific that you get from OpenTelemetry to instrument your application. It's a set of tools, I guess, where you can basically implement a sidecar and have it instrument your application that you've already written, say in Python or Go or Node.js, whatever you wrote it in, .NET, I guess even. And you put it in there, and it'll instrument the application and then report to the back end, which is the observability cluster. And then everything that your AI application did, even if it's a bespoke application that you hand wrote yourself in your company, this will instrument that application without you having to go in and rewrite the code. And then report it back so that the dashboards will then show all of the metrics of the AI infrastructure and the components, again, tokens, and GPU monitors, and I think there's some pictures, we'll go into it later. But all of that will be up in application collection in April, and that's a new addition to what the product's going to be able to do. Today you can do that if you hand roll it. We're going to be providing all of those pieces already built and put out so that you can just plug it in with a Helm chart install. Don't know if you wanted to add to that, actually.
No.
Okay. This is up there. Talk about it.
MLFlow is already there. Basically, MLFlow is a more traditional tool, if you want, on the MLOps scenario, especially to tracking models, especially modern training. It can be used in the context of LLM as well. As said, we currently release MLFlow as a container. We are working on release, again, a few days, the M chart for MLFlow. This is a SUSE opinionated in terms of be curated by us, be within the sleek container, so it's completely rebuilt. So it's not, because MLFlow provides an official container, we basically rebuild that container, looking into the security container in the context of SUSE. So it's CVE free, or almost CVE free. I will show you later what I mean with that.
And this is your fun.
Yeah, GreenDos. Well, let me show practically what GreenDos is, because just really quickly. So also to demonstrate actually that things are there. Products. So today, basically, you can already log in on SUSE, and you basically find two guardrails, the two GreenDos, as we call it, is a blueprint. The discussion between blueprints and GreenDos is simply the blueprint has been invented by IBM, that's why blue. GreenDos are now rebranded by SUSE, that's why they're green, that's it. We have a lot of fantasy, I know. Anyway, one of the things is, for example, that you basically can open up this simple document, and basically this document guides you directly to the implementation, in this case, specific or guidelines. As you can see, there's literally code there, so you can really follow the document step by step and just go there. Let me just increase a little bit the size. So you can literally follow the document as it is, and at the end you will install, in this case, a guardrail, on the other case, sorry, in the other case, you will install, for example, an agentic workflow. We pick up technology based on a simple rule that says, well, sometimes this technology is so new that we cannot make it in time to release it as a component immediately. We will do later. But in that case, we offer you the capability to use it. Here's a simple use case, an agentic workflow that it will end up as it is, this one. And technically speaking, just to understand what I mean, is basically where it is. Because everybody likes a demo. That is basically implementing that. This is the agentic workflow. This component will be released on the application library pretty soon. The guidelines basically explain you how to implement these. So that's basically, like, as you can see, basically this is exactly what we're doing right now.
And I think it's useful to say that, in a way, it's kind of like a reference architecture, to use another term. But it'll document how to do things that we don't necessarily supply, but how to work with the product and work in this environment with it.
That doesn't mean we will not provide them later. It simply means that right now they are not yet ready to be implemented. Maybe because we are still evaluating the security, maybe because we have to write some piece of code to actually run it and so on.
And you'll see that because this is going to show up in the next quarter. VLLM, this is now we're into the following quarter, and as I'm going to call it out, Qflow was on the previous slide. It wasn't supposed to be. It moved out to this one, so now this is the real Qflow. But VLLM, we'll start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So VLLM is another component that's being highly requested right now. I would say that if you look at the AI market, especially from inference engine or inferencing, VLLM probably is the most requested product right now there. So we basically are going to offer it to our customers along with Olama, and later in the year with other inference engines. So this way you will have a choice actually to pick up one of the others, as well as, for example, others, things like MLFlow that you just saw. Right now, as you can see, that's exactly the approach. Now is available the GreenDos. Within the next quarter, basically, we are releasing MLFlow. Probably will be earlier than what is said in the slide, because like we said, it's a rolling release. So the moment we finish, we will release it, and so on. Qflow is the same. So Qflow is there because we noticed that there's a high demand from a Qflow's perspective to have an opinionated Qflow that basically is exactly the same Qflow project that you can have upstream, but in the context of containers that are security-free, so are curated by the company itself. And curious enough, if you look at the current Qflow opinionated platform, there are not so many actually that can be really used in production, because either have mandatory requirements of running on specific architectures or specific vendors, or either are curated by a more smaller company that don't give you that level of trust and quality, like, for example, we can give you as a company because of our heritage, basically. So what we will basically show here is really SUSE opinionated in terms of container, based on this list of all the Qflow project. So you will basically pick up, and to your question, basically, that is a first step, again, toward the capability training, but also is a first step toward the MLOps market, where you can use, for example, Qflow to do more traditional machine learning that way.
So, I mean, I'm going to dissect on or drill down on the opinionated the way you bring it up. Would it be fair to say the opinionated is stated there because Qflow is a giant project. You could implement it lots and lots of ways. This is a predefined set of Qflow being put down. so that, here's an easy way to run it, here's an easy use of it, but it's a specific install, and when you install Qflow, you could have done it 10 different ways.
Yeah, and the other value that you have, of course, is this is more if you want a pure SUSE value, is that because we do this, then we can instrument observability, we can instrument security, we can instrument RKey and Ranger actually to run it, because we know exactly what we build and how we build it, and basically can be literally embedded into our stack.
Yeah. And then you've got additional architectures, GreenDos, that you're going to come out with?
Just for those actually that eventually don't know those names, so Presidio is a guardrail made by Microsoft as an open source project. What it does basically is in 3 directions. One is analyze the content of your prompt to understand if there's any sensitive data based on the rules that you implement. The second option is that once you basically identify there's a PII data within the prompt, it can anonymize this data in text or in images, so you can also redact images. The typical use case, you want to blur a face in an image for privacy reasons. And the third one is that you can encrypt actually that prompt so that actually the sensitive data can travel through the network but in an encrypted way. Crew AI Hungry Faces small agents are basically agentic workflows are highly requested. That is an example that we receive from customer. So Crew AI is a framework that is open source, but actually the real capability of Crew AI are not necessarily open source. So what we do through the GreenDos is basically explain you how to use Crew AI in the context of SUSE and the components we do offer, so you can use it. Not necessarily we will be in a position to offer the entire Crew AI capability as a component later, because as I said, some of this is under a private license that we cannot use as open source component.
Yeah. All right. Yep. So and then before the end of the year, we have some space here, but one of the things you'll see is LanceDB, and you can talk about that. It's a vector database.
Yeah, it's a vector database. Actually, LanceDB it's pretty interesting. How many of you been there's been a session from Microsoft during the days where they make an announcement around SQL? So you probably already know that SQL is starting to offer a capability to be consumed as a vector database. We work with Microsoft on that, and LanceDB is just yet another vector database. What is actually
Everyone's got one.
Yeah, what is actually happening in the market that is pretty interesting is that the vector database market, let's call it like that, is the first part of the LLM market that seems to start to standardize. So it's time to slow down. Traditional database vendors start to offer vector capability. And because of that, we start to identify those vector databases and eventually transform them in fully curated SUSE. What means? If the opinionated allow you to have L2 support, a fully curated version of it can offer the L3 support, so the maximum capability of supporting a database. We are pretty conservative toward that, because before getting into L3, we really need to know the technology. But in order to do so, we observe the market. If the market is standardized, start to slow down, then we can identify the major actors, and based on the major actor, we can do it. If I look at SQL, SQL is already opinionated to that extent, because we offer it as a part of a SLE. And so potentially we already know what to do there, and Microsoft is a partner of us for a long time, so we can potentially land it as an opinionated version pretty soon.
Updated AI observability dashboard. So we're putting up the dashboards right now in April. You'll be able to have those. They'll cover the token use, the GPU use, the vector database calls, et cetera, the call prompts and all of that. But the way that the UI today in SUSE Observability, now this is just the cloud native SUSE Observability, the AI infrastructure and the way it renders and what you can use to create dashboards it's very deep. It gives you lots of information. But they're going to be changing the underlying technology on how you can render things in the dashboard. And so we put some time in the Q4 roadmap to rebuild the dashboards, because we'll have shiny things like, I don't know, speedometers and things like that in it later. It'll be the same metrics, the same data, but you'll have more control on what it looks like. And that's really what it's for. GreenDos.
GreenDos, as usual. So there's basically 2 kinds of GreenDos. One is fine-tuning. Around that, let's say, fine-tuning is pretty complex. For those that are around tomorrow, I will run a session tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. around how you fine-tune sightseeing and LLM system, so you're welcome to attend. The fine-tuning will be around that line. We put it fine-tuning GreenDos at the end of the year explicitly because basically we will use the entire year also to listen to you, to understand from you what are the use cases, and try to create something that resonates with you as well as the remediation practice. This is more related probably to observability, but it goes along the same line.
Yeah, okay. So we get into observability now. This is, we're going to get into the dashboards and what we're going to be providing. And so what we're going to be extending here is the ability to do, well, the table stakes of observability are tracing, metrics, and logs. And with observability, when we apply it to this infrastructure and what we're enhancing, is we're going to basically attach the tracing, metrics, and logs to doing LLM observability, which really is the tokens, a GPU observability, which is the monitoring of them, and then the vector database observability. And so all of those will show up in these dashboards, and then you'll be able to attach cost to it, see it based on, and the costs here, the way it works is you can have a JSON file, that service that basically has the cost, like here's what a token costs, here's what I pay a token. And then as you're actually doing calls and things like that, or you can actually trace it to a call and say, this one costs this much, or this is how much I'm spending, et cetera. It'll go through and create the dashboards and utilization overviews for you that cover these kinds of things. But what's really going on and what we're putting up there, and this is not in the application collection, you won't see this, because this is going to be built into the product. And what it is today, when you do cloud native, you have that SO agent, and the SO agent gives you kind of the topology and the deep dive and understanding and observations of the Kubernetes infrastructure. And you can really go into it. You can look at it in events, you can look at it at services, you can look at namespaces, you can look at lots of different views of it and see how it all lays out. When we add in the addition of the OTel agent, OTel being the open telemetry agent, it's going to pull in the auto instrumentation from the application itself. It's going to pull in the vector database. In this case, we've got it labeled as Milvus, and Milvus comes pre-configured with its instrumentation built in. And it's going to actually pull from the NVIDIA Operator the GPU monitoring, and it's going to overlay that with the SUSE observability. So what you'll end up with is the ability to look at the Kubernetes cluster in a visual way, see all the connection points, all of the things. I can't remember if this is a topology, and looking at a llama as one of the use cases, and see all the connections to it. But you can drill into it and say, this node is doing this work, it's actually running, and it's responsible for the call, or it's got a llama running, and it's got this many tokens associated with it. We have a session later today where we'll dive into that in more detail. But these dashboards are what you'll get when we put that out in April with the enhanced data collector that then gathers all of that information so that you can actually populate these dashboards. And then the auto instrumentation components are I'm going to go back. The auto instrumentation components are what help you on that top box on the far right. That's representative of your application. So if you build an AI application, a lot of them will be hand-built. You have to tell it what to pass to be observed and what's going on. So what infrastructure and what data format and data that you're going to track. The auto instrumentation is more or less an industry standard way that's agreed upon from the open telemetry project that defines what data is going to be tracked, what format it's going to be in, and then how to actually view it. And so all of that data will come in. The auto instrumentation components let you track that data from an application you've already written without having to rewrite the application, which is a big deal. And so that's a standard way to do it. And then once you do that, it'll plug into this environment where you can look at all of that information built into the dashboards. And to be fair, I don't know if it's really obvious. Observability, I think of in the cloud native, people think of, well, that's a nice to have. In AI, observability is not a nice to have. It's a I have to have this. Because you can't troubleshoot, for instance, a long-running transaction that goes through a model or multiple models that has different interaction points. Because if you were expecting a response in 5 seconds and it took 25 seconds, you'd have to go find out what happened. And if you can't look into this infrastructure, you can't see where it happened. So you really have to have this to remediate on an AI application. So Just making a plug for observability. Yeah, pictures. Security.
Security. Yeah, so that's basically represent what I was saying before. That is literally about security can have different dimensions. So we start from the easiest one, that is every time we release a component, the first step is really about how can I guarantee that that component can run in a secure way on your infrastructure. And the way we do it is through the vulnerability score. So what we do basically is that we plug the new release from the upstream. We embed the new release into the corrected container. Once we do that, we basically observe and we scan and attestate that. And based on that, we give you a vulnerability score that basically represents for each CVEs that we find the grade of the security of that container. So we can basically say, okay, here's Olama. I see green there. Green basically means that is either low or unknown status. Typically, is a low status, means probably there's a CVE that will be fixed either by us or either by upstream to collaboration and contribution, but typically does that. The other things that we do, and I can show you quickly, let me just do this. So I'm picking up something really just quickly. Let's take Alert Manager. No, yes. So basically, I'm coming here, picking up randomly any version. You see the vulnerability score is 5 in this case. But what is really important is that I can literally go for the attestation of the bills of materials. It basically says what is inside that project. And this is exactly what I see. It's the list of components that make that project with their version and their licenses. So you basically can guarantee what is inside that. That's to really offer you enterprise-grade capability while giving an upstream version of the things. Because this way I can literally go there and it literally knows what's going on. So for example, if I pick up, well, let's pick up OpenWebUI. OpenWebUI has just been released like literally 3 hours ago. So I can pick up the previous version that we have, and I can see there, and it already says, hey, by the way, now this is outdated. We release a new version upstream, so be careful if you want to use it. But if I go to use the latest version, I already have a vulnerability score done, no CVE is there. Just to give you really a sense of what I'm saying, how many of you use Kafka in production on their environment? Kafka is secure, right?
That one.
Let's see Kafka 3.9 version. It's a vulnerability score of 2. These are the CVEs actually that's been identified. And if I click on one of these, I will land on the CVE record or I can understand exactly what's going on there. That's what you need, because even from a compliance perspective, you need to know what's going on there. You need to know that thing. The second step is basically land on the security tool, the SUSE security tool. This is what formerly known as the new vector, that it was through acquisition. The base is more a traditional kind of a security tool, so I can do things from deep packet inspection, layer 7 inspection, to policy admission control. So for example, one thing that you can do is, let's say that your LLM, for any given reason, try to connect to something that is not supposed to be connected. We can then instantiate a rule that says, in case I see that it's trying to connect to an API or a rule or URL that is not supposed to connect, we can quarantine that. We can basically stop that channel and wait for you to input and decide what to do next. So this is basically reading, along with the guardrails that we mentioned before, you read the guardrail signals to say, hey, someone actually violated the rule, and because of that, we need to actually stop it, or at least we need to alert you. And all those signals can be read again from the observability. So even from an observability standpoint, I know exactly what's going on there.
That's it?
Absolutely, yes. So that's basically what I was saying. This is an example of guardrails, a visual example in OpenWebUI. As it says, it's a stupid example, but it's an example. So basically, the example is, this is the same conversation. Without guardrails, I said, well, actually, this is stupid. I think you are stupid to the LLM. And the LLM reply, oh, well, you shouldn't say that to me, but OK, that's it.
That's a silly example.
Yeah, then I enable the guardrail, and I basically say exactly the same stuff, and actually start to complain like, well, OK, one is OK, twice not. So go back. You cannot proceed there. Now, this is really a stupid example. Let's say that instead of doing this, actually, I just pass by my credit card number, and my credit card number just travels the network as it is, so that anybody actually can sniff it and get it. The guardrail actually could anonymize that data, still working, could encrypt that data, and still signal to the observability and to the security that data was passing by to the network. So it's pretty useful. Or maybe, let's say that this is a customer-facing application. This is your customer support. And the user is using toxic language against you, or he reply the LLM for any given reason as an hallucination and basically reply in a way that is not appropriate, looking at your company rules. You want to avoid that. That's the guidelines in action. And as you can see, basically, it's being implemented. This is one of the many components in Open Web UI. As you can see, we offer it SUSE branded, because we know you love SUSE and you want a SUSE branded. But that's basically, that's it. And you can implement this through the GreenDos even today. Yep.
Great. That's the roadmap for this year. And if you
Thank
got
you all for
thoughts,
listening up.
ideas, we'll take more.
If you are interested, the Ron and Alex show will get again today
4:30.
later on the observability this time.
We'll go into it and actually
we
show
will
the
get
product.
drinks this time. Or otherwise, thank you
We'll
very
talk
much.
about the same things, but then show the product.
Again.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.